The way I got into this project in the very first place was not with the spoiler, someone dies in this book, with with what happened with Ian Thorson, but it was actually much earlier than that, in 2006, when I was leading an abroad program in North India through Bodh Gaya, Varanasi, Dharamsala, the greatest hits. And I had 12 students under my care. One of my students, the best and the brightest, we'll call her Emily O'Connor, and she was so excited about going to the 10-day meditation retreat at the Root Institute in Bodh Gaya. As the retreat came to a close, she climbed up onto the roof of the meditation center, wrote in her journal, contemplating my own death is key, and then I am a bodhisattva. So she had achieved some sort of very serious understanding. And then she jumped off the roof of the meditation center and died on impact. And seeing a human go from a person with a soul and who's full of life and vitality to being someone who is not very different from a slab of meat. That set me off on a 3-year investigation of the commercialization of the body and organ markets. But the whole time I was also thinking, how can something so beautiful as meditation, something that's supposed to make you compassionate and empathetic and well-adjusted to society, how can it go so wrong? And I've often wondered, is it something that's in her brain that's going on? Right. Maybe she had a predisposition to this, or maybe there's something in the techniques themselves that can either cause or instigate something that is latent. Buddhism came to America right after the Civil War, where we just experienced this traumatic event where huge, enormous battlefield casualties, and many people questioned the God himself that they had believed in, and they looked for all sorts of esoteric belief systems, and we have Shakers, Mormons, all sorts of things sort of come up in this time period and grow very, very strong. And yes, I think that people, when their world is shaken, do look first for spiritual answers, and when the spiritual answers of their own culture don't work out, they will look elsewhere. The actual state of enlightenment poses an interesting problem. What are people supposed to do with the rest of their time on Earth once they've gained the knowledge and the nature of reality? Revered gurus who teach that status and power are meaningless in the ultimate reality, nonetheless still have to muck about in this mundane world. They gather followers, they build institutions, and dispense knowledge from lofty thrones. Is it hypocrisy when enlightenment simply reproduces familiar hierarchies? Or in other words, how does the Buddha remain in the world, but not of it? And that's like the crux of a lot of what I've been thinking about, is that if we have 6 people who are enlightened, are they all going to sit in a room together and be like, yeah, that's what I found too? Right. The Buddha was teaching his students a way to not become attached to their own bodies and to contemplate their own impermanence in the world. And he suggested to his students, why don't you go sit in the charnel grounds, which are these open cemeteries where paupers and prostitutes were decaying in the open. And you'll sit and you'll watch these people decay. And then by doing that, you will understand how your own life is the same as this, and that you can transcend to something greater. And the Buddha was like, here, go sit in the charnel grounds, my entire flock, hundreds of students, and I'll see you later. I'm going off into the mountains to meditate for a while. And so the Buddha does that. The students sit in the charnel grounds, and then the texts say they're overcome with despair, and they all start killing themselves, scores. First it's 1 or 2, and then dozens are dying, and then the ones who are unwilling to kill themselves hire this monk named Megalandika to go slit their throats for him, and then he goes freelance and goes kills everyone he can. The Buddha comes back, and he says, you guys made a big mistake. This is not what I wanted, because his entire flock is dead at this point, except for 1 or 2. And they excommunicate Megalandika, and the Buddha says, all right, instead of corpse meditation, you guys are going to focus on the rising and falling of your breathing. And And this is one of those moments where even with the very best teacher in all of Buddhism, the Buddha, you can still have mistakes. You can still go wrong. Or maybe the Buddha was not, it's a pedagogical problem.